decision that you make as a woman shouldn't have anything to do with how you feel about your husband or your partner, but should have everything to do with being realistic and, foreseeing anything that could happen in the future. Because there's no doubt that in the beginning, like Halekala, things are great, and you want to think with your heart and your feelings, and those butterflies in your stomach, ignore them. Men are great, love is great, but men are also liars. So next up we have Trishana. She's going to give us a quick chat on divorce. She's Trishana Govender, also runs her own legal practice. Everyone here. Also runs her own law firm. She specializes in commercial, family law. She drafts anti-nuptial contracts. She drafts wills. She does a lot of divorce, marriage, explaining processes of the different marriage regimes as Zanele has done. And in the past, she worked for a financial institution where she helped facilitate home loans. She is a notary and conveyancer, so she's written a lot more exams than I have. But as Zanele said, when you're drafting an anti-nuptial contract, it has to be signed in front of a notary public. She's a notary public. She's the girl. She's got an accolade of studies behind her. She's got like 7 belts. Please come up. She's going to be discussing divorces and the consequences thereof.
Okay, so as my friend and colleague has introduced me, I am Trishana Govender. I'm an admitted attorney, conveyancer, and notary, and I practice in Pretoria. I do a lot of anti-nuptial contracts, wills, trusts, uncontested divorces. Let me just put that one out there. But I also facilitate reaching settlement with spouses who wish to divorce and all of that. So let me take you through it quickly. I just want to go through firstly the marriages, the different types of marriages in South Africa. So we get our normal civil marriages, well not normal, but civil marriages, our customary marriages, and our civil unions. So civil unions are same-sex marriages, basically between a man and man and woman and woman. But they're all governed by their own act. They have their own act, their own procedure, their own formalities. So if whatever you wish to marry, you need to be married within that act to make sure that your marriage is valid. The Marriage Act facilitates your civil marriages. It is only between monogamous heterosexual couples, so between a man and woman, and in a monogamous marriage, so one man, one woman. This does not recognize polygamous marriages, and if you are already a party to a customary marriage or a civil marriage, you cannot get married again in terms of the Civil Marriage Act. If it is not picked up with home affairs, anything like that, your resulting marriage is not legal. Okay? As a general rule, both spouses must be above 18 years of age, but if they are not, they can get consent from the Minister of Home Affairs. The Recognition of Customary Marriages Act is what governs our customary marriages, monogamous and polygamous. And it has to be concluded in terms of the customs and traditions usually observed by the indigenous African people of South Africa, in which form part of the culture of those people. So basically, the marriage must be celebrated in terms of that couple. So whatever their custom recognizes them, and there are various throughout South Africa, but that specific couple must be celebrated within their customs. Okay. This act was much needed, as we all know, because it also empowers your pre-existing spouse, so your first wife. Because now your first wife must consent to that second marriage and must consent to that property regime that's going to govern, and it affects her. So she has that power to consent to it. Whether it happens in practice or not, I'm not sure. But legally, if you get to the end, and if it wasn't done, it could help her in proving her claims. Okay. And then previously, your very old couples who were married under the Black Administration Act, their marriages were deemed out of community or property automatically, and there was no share for the stay-at-home mom. And now those marriages are deemed in community, like your civil marriages. But it won't really affect you, just older people, your moms or grandmoms. And then you get your Civil Union Act, which is for same-sex couples. So this act only allows for marriage of same-sex couples who are over the age of 18. Unlike the Marriage Act, it does not give you any leeway to get consent. If you're a kid, you must stay a kid and not get married. Don't do these things because you don't have the consent, you won't be legal. Okay? And the reason for this act was also to create legal standing for a same-sex couple who either could not marry under the Civil Union Act, or who also, it can be a man and woman who don't want to marry under the Marriage Act. It gives them an avenue to get the legal recognition. Okay. All divorces are, all marriages are deemed in community of property and in community of profit and loss, which Zanele has taken us through. But this can be excluded by the conclusion of an ANC signed in front of a notary public. That's me. And it's very important. The date is important. Similar says I backdate contracts, but I don't. How you are married is important for when you decide, or if you decide to divorce, because that proprietary consequence impacts you on what happens at the end. Okay, so in South Africa, whether you're married in a civil union, a customary marriage, or a civil marriage, you must get divorced. I know there's some discussion about common law divorces or legal separation. It does not exist. If you're not living with your husband, if you cannot find him or wife, you need to go to the court and you need to get a court divorce. Don't, if you have whatever reason you have to think that you are not married, it's not true. You need to. In fact, if you can't find him, it's better, it will go quicker.
Yeah.
You know, just you must go to the courts. It's the only way you can dissolve a marriage. There are voidable or void marriages, which marriages you don't have to apply for divorce because they were never legal in the first place. So either you got married by someone who said they were a marriage officer but they weren't, or you got married to in a prohibited relationship, or something like that. There are also marriages which are legal but must legal until they are voided by the court. So they will exist. They're not invalid from the outset, but you must go to the court. So if you are forced into a marriage, or someone questioned you and said, we are going to get married, you can go to the court and have that marriage removed. Okay, so I'm going to take you through the two types of divorces quickly, contested and uncontested. It's the same thing. It's just the process that differs. Both are divorces. And if you start off as uncontested, your husband is like, we're going to get married, we're going to sign this thing, it's done, whatever. And then you get to court and then he says, uncontested divorce can become a contested divorce, and a contested divorce can be mediated and then become uncontested. Okay? It's just the way we refer to it. Uncontested divorce, we love it, lawyers love it because it's quick and easy. The spouses agree to the terms, they agree to what's going to happen with the property, they agree to how the kids are going to be maintained, how to divide the assets, and whatever important decisions that needs to be taken care of after the marriage. It goes into an settlement agreement which is attached to your summons, and you go to court with your summons. Settlement agreement is part of the summons. You say, here, Mr. Judge, please grant me my divorce. We have agreed to the terms. There's nothing for you to decide. Just tell me that I'm divorced and give me my certificate and I'm out. And that is ideally what you want to do, because you want to save that money in litigation, in an evil spouse, preventing you from trying to hold you down. So this is the one that we love to do. It's best for both spouses. You're not going to waste your money, you're not going to waste your time. You're going to be able to move on with your life. There are ways where you can do it yourself, so you don't need a lawyer. However, it's very tricky, and don't take it for granted, because unless you are really on the same page with your spouse, you guys, it's uncontested, that you guys don't own a lot of property or assets, it's not going to be complicated to divide it. You've been married for a short period of time. You guys agree on what's going to happen with the kids, how we're going to look after them. You can go ahead and do it. Your courts can give you your forms. You can fill it in. And your spouse is likely to cooperate. But you can't rely on it. So what I would always suggest is try and get a settlement agreement and then go forth that way. Okay. And then we have the contested divorce. So this is where you and your spouse just cannot agree on what is going to happen to your property, to your money, to your kids, and you give your piece in your summons and he will give his reply, and you just keep butting heads. And what happens in this situation is that the court will make a decision for you. So the court will take into consideration what have you both given, what are you both saying, what do you both need, and they will make a decision for you, and that will be your court order. Okay? It can be long, it can be emotional, it can cost a lot of money, and at the end of the day, you're not really sure if you're going to get what you want. It is an uncertain process, and that's why if at the beginning you get your ducks in a row, you have your contract, you know what's going to happen. I mean, it's just so beneficial for women especially. If you guys have started your divorce process and you just cannot agree, you can go to mediation. So that's where an attorney or a mediator, independent party, can come in and say, okay, what is it that you want? What is it that you want? You guys can talk. You guys can, try and come to an answer. Try and find something that's going to suit you, and put your short-term and short-sighted disagreements aside, and help you decide on something that is long-term that's going to enable you to start your life afresh. Okay, so basically, when you are divorced, the main things that need to be considered is what happens to your property, and that's determined by how you are married. If there's any outstanding obligations, so in your ANC you said, when we get to year 5 of our marriage, I'm going to give you, this never happens, but in case it happens, I'll just say it, I'm going to give you 100,000 rand, and then you get to year 5, and now you're getting divorced. You must get all those outstanding obligations must be settled. The Divorce Act, Section 7 of the Divorce Act, does allow the courts to, if you are married out of community of property and you are not legally entitled to anything, the court does have the discretion to reassess your situation. So did you give up your career for this guy? What did you do? And then the court allows you to, the court is allowed to make an order to give you something, but you can't rely on these things. You can't say that it will happen. Okay? And then there's Section 9 of the Divorce Act, which is the forfeiture of patrimonial benefits. So if this guy literally forced you into a divorce, he was never there, there's circumstances that he doesn't deserve anything, basically. Or maybe you don't, I don't know. But there is ways that the courts have discretion to basically say, okay, you are not entitled to this amount that you should have had, or a part of it. But that's all court discretion, and it's something that you can't really rely on. Neither can you access it if you're not litigating. So if you're not there with both your lawyers in court every other day, you can't access those benefits. Okay. And then quickly, to just start the divorce proceedings, you need to get your summons. So either you're going to your court and you're filling it out yourself, or you're getting your attorney to draft your summons. That basically says, why are we getting divorced? Not why in detail. So basically, as long as your marriage has broken down, you may get divorced. You don't need your spouse's permission or consent to get a divorce. If you want to get a divorce, you're entitled to get a divorce. And then it's advisable if you foresee it to be complicated, you need a lawyer to do the running around. It's very technical. Litigation is a technical procedure, and that is why you need an attorney if you are foreseeing that it's not going to be straightforward. Okay. So recently, what I have noticed is that where spouses, husbands or wives, are being unnecessarily difficult. So there is no reason for them to keep at it, keep putting new demands, keep saying no, just keep it going. The only reason to do this is they're trying to delay, they're trying to deplete your money, they're trying to make you tired. The courts have recently been inclined to grant this divorce in any case. They'll make their order, they'll grant the divorce, they'll say this enough is enough. Because it seemed as wasting the court's time and wasting the taxpayers' money, because we pay these judges. But it's also something that you can't rely on. So you need to just make sure that from the outset, you're okay, you know what's going to happen at the end, and if possible, to just play nice and try and get a settlement, and and move on with your life. It's the quickest way to move on with your life. So I hope I've given you enough information in a short time, and we'll answer the questions at the panel.